They called it a routine termination. Sector 9, Zone Blue. Suspected clone defect. Confirm and deactivate. It was supposed to be easy. I moved through the corridor like a shadow. Concrete walls whispered with the hum of electric veins running behind them. Power lines, data streams, tracking pulses. I felt them more than I saw them, just like I'd been trained. Just like I was built to. My name is Matt 47A. I was created to protect order. And up until 7 minutes ago, I did exactly that. Now I was hesitating. Now I was sweating. Sweating. Clones don't sweat. The air smelled of ozone and rust. Somewhere nearby, a leaking wire sparked. I adjusted my neural visor to thermal. There, behind a stack of crates, was the target. Body heat. Rapid breathing. Fear. Visual confirmed, I said aloud. My voice sounded wrong, like someone else was using my mouth. Initiating deactivation protocol. I stepped forward, pistol steady in my grip. A quick, clean pulse to the cranial cortex. No suffering. No mess. That was the way of it. The clone turned to face me. Female. Early 20s model. Same manufacturing tag as mine. Unit 47. Her face was almost familiar, like a ghost of someone I should remember, but didn't. She didn't run. She didn't beg. She just looked at me and whispered, "You don't have to." My finger froze on the trigger. Something cracked inside my head. A flash, too fast to process. Trees. A child's laughter. A hand gripping mine. The smell of rain on old pavement. Where had that come from? "You're glitching," she said softly, like she knew. "It starts with memories that aren't yours. Then emotions. Then the questions. I should have pulled the trigger. Every line of code inside me screamed to complete the directive. But I didn't. My hand trembled. My breath hitched. I didn't breathe like this. Not before. And then the voice in my earpiece came through cold and sharp. "Enforcer 47A, why haven't you executed the target?" Another flash. A woman's voice, not from the earpiece. From the memory. "Matt, come inside. It's raining, sweetheart." Sweetheart. That word shouldn't have meant anything. But it did. It hurt. The clone moved slowly past me, hands raised, disappearing into the shadows without a sound. I let her go. I just stood there, gun still raised at nothing. "Enforcer 47A, the voice repeated. "Response required." I dropped the weapon. Something was wrong with me. Not physically. Not externally. No wounds, no trauma. It was something deeper. Inside. Then, the screen on my forearm lit up with a flashing red warning. Cognitive deviation detected. Neural compliance breach, 001. Subject marked for termination. I stared at the display. They were coming for me now. I ran. My boots pounded against the metal floor, each step echoing louder than the last. Sirens began to wail behind me, cold and high like machine screams. Surveillance drones activated above, buzzing like flies. Doors slammed shut. Walls shifted. The building had turned into a cage. I wasn't an enforcer anymore. I was prey. A flood of images poured into my head as I sprinted through the narrow maintenance tunnels. Faces I didn't know, voices I'd never heard, memories I had no right to claim. And for the first time in my manufactured life, I felt something raw and terrifying burning in my chest. Fear. And beneath it, hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't what they said I was. Not just a clone. Not just a tool. Maybe I was becoming something else. Something more. The city never sleeps. Neo-Toronto pulses like a living machine. Steel bones, neon veins, and a heart that beats beneath it all. I used to find comfort in its order. The humming of surveillance drones. The perfect predictability of the patrol routes. I was part of the machine. A cog. A useful one. Now I'm a glitch. The moment I hesitated back at Sector 9, something in me cracked. I felt it, like static behind the eyes. That second of delay, the clone I was supposed to execute vanished into the smoke. And then I ran. They would have tracked me within minutes. Every clone has a neural tag. Every breath I take, every heartbeat, is logged and uploaded. But I knew how to mask it. I was made to hunt traitors. Turns out, that means I know how to become one. I ditched the black consortium armor, peeled it off in an alley thick with grime and steam. Underneath, my synthetic skin looked no different from any other man's. I blended into the night. People passed me, naturals drunk, distracted, hollow-eyed, and none of them saw what I was. That was a small miracle. But the drones would. I ducked into the underlayers, beneath the sky bridges and hollow-ad walls. Here, in the city's stomach, light was a rumor. Garbage fires, sparking circuits, the flicker of faulty ad boards. This was the kind of place even the consortium barely bothered to clean. I moved fast but careful. My boots splashed through puddles slick with oil and old blood. My hands trembled, not from fear. From something else. Something I didn't understand. My mind was filled with flashes again. A little boy's voice. Laughter. A woman calling a name that wasn't mine. "Daniel," she said. "Come inside." I stopped in my tracks. That name echoed in my skull like a bullet inside a tin can. Daniel. Who the hell was Daniel? A static ping jolted me back to the moment. My neural chip had been sending out trace pings this whole time. I cursed and reached behind my ear. My fingers found the embedded tag port, cold, smooth, metallic. I jammed a tool into it, twisted. Pain. Pure, white, and blinding. I bit my lip until it bled, yanked the port loose. My vision went fuzzy, then cleared. I'd never been cut off from the grid before. It was like losing a sense, like going blind or deaf all at once. The silence in my skull was louder than anything I'd ever heard. I staggered down a tunnel beneath an old mag train line. This place wasn't mapped anymore. Not officially. Just black space in the city grid. That's where I found the signal. It came from an old service panel on the wall. Flickering green light. A symbol scratched into the metal beside it. A circle with a line through the center. I didn't recognize it, but something about it made my heart, my artificial, too perfect heart, stutter. I reached out and touched the panel. Static crawled across my fingers. Then a voice came through. Echo found. Link unstable. If you're hearing this, you are not alone. It was a woman's voice. Not the same as in the memory. This one was lower, steadier. She sounded tired. Worn. Real. Proceed to dead sector 12, she said. We'll find you. Then the signal died. I stared at the panel for a long time, heart hammering in my chest. Dead sector 12. That was suicide. That place was cordoned off after the last clone riot 10 years ago. No comms. No oxygen pumps. No consortium presence either. Just dark, silence, and stories. But I had no choice. I made my way there by night. Slipped through maintenance tunnels and flooded sewers. Slept only once, hidden beneath a collapsed cargo depot, with rats crawling over my boots. My dreams were filled with that name again, Daniel, and the woman's face. It wasn't mine. It never had been. 3 days later, I found dead sector 12. The silence hit me first. Not just the absence of noise, but the kind that eats sound. Like the city had been swallowed whole. I stepped through rusted gates, my flashlight beam catching broken crates, faded graffiti, and husks of deactivated clones, long since drained of life. My foot crunched glass. My breath misted in the cold air. And then I felt it. The gun pressed to the back of my head. Don't move, a voice said. Female. Hard. Measured. I didn't turn. Didn't flinch. I'm not your enemy, I said. Could have fooled me. That's a consortium tag mark on your neck. Not anymore. Silence. Then she spoke again. What's your designation? Matt. 47A. That's not a name. I know. I slowly turned to face her. She was lean, pale, and wearing patchwork armor that had seen better days. Her eyes were bright, sharp, and alive in a way that made mine feel old. She looked human. Not clone. But then again, so did I. Her finger twitched on the trigger. You're either one of us, she said, or you're a spy. I'm just trying to understand what I am, I told her. And I think you might have the answer. She studied me for a long time. Then slowly she lowered the gun. Name's Lyra, she said. Follow me. But if you lie to me, if you hesitate again, I'll put a bullet through your skull, clone or not. I nodded, and followed her into the dark. The light in the rebel safe house flickered like a dying pulse. A strip of ceiling LEDs buzzed above me, casting everything in a pale, sickly blue. I sat in a metal chair, wrists still sore from the neural cuffs they'd used when I arrived. Across from me, Lyra leaned against a wall, arms crossed, watching me with sharp, skeptical eyes. You passed the override test, she said. Most clones drop to their knees when they hear the shutdown code. I didn't respond right away. My tongue felt heavy. My mind heavier. I'd been silent since they'd brought me in, choosing to observe rather than speak. I didn't know the rules here yet, what would get me trusted, or what would get me killed. Lyra stepped forward and set a small device on the table. It was a compact hollow emitter. With a quick swipe across its surface, she projected a rotating data strand, glowing red, dancing like fire. This is what freed me, she said. The consciousness virus. It didn't look like much. Just a strand of data, constantly shifting. But it pulsed with life, like it was breathing. You think you're awake now, Lyra said. But that glitch in your system? That was just the beginning. If you're going to survive, if you're going to be more than a defective machine, you need to understand what this really is. I leaned forward. A virus woke you? She raised an eyebrow. Not woke. Changed. The AI behind it didn't just break our code. It asked us a question. What kind of question? One our code wasn't written to answer. She let the silence hang there for a moment. I realized that this wasn't about tech. It was about belief. Lyra turned and walked toward the doorway, gesturing for me to follow. Come on. You want to be one of us. You need to see where you come from. I followed her down narrow halls lined with old server cores and handmade posters. Phrases like we remember what they erased and your body is not their code. The walls felt alive, humming with the tension of people who were building something in the shadows. We entered a darkened chamber with curved walls. The only light came from a massive holomap at the center, showing flickering dots across the city. Every dot is a clone, Lyra said. Tracked in real time. Some are still asleep. Others, like you, are waking up. The virus spreads slow. Has to be careful. Too fast, and they'll catch it. Kill it. I looked closer at the dots. There were hundreds. Maybe thousands. Moving across the city like sparks in the dark. What are we trying to do? I asked. Free all of them? Not just free, she said. Help them remember. Help them become. The way she said it, it didn't sound like rebellion. It sounded like resurrection. A door behind us hissed open. An older man stepped through, gray beard, cybernetic eye, stiff gait. He nodded to Lyra, then stared at me. This him? He asked. Lyra nodded. Yeah. Matt, meet Ray's. He helped build the virus. Ray studied me like I was a puzzle piece he didn't quite trust. He's still raw, Lyra said. But he's different. Different how? Ray's asked. He didn't get awakened by the virus, she said. Something in him glitched before we reached him. He resisted the shutdown code on his own. Ray's brow furrowed. You ever see the sky, son? I blinked. What? The real sky. Not the projected dome over District 7. The one above the clouds. I shook my head. He smiled. Thought not. That's the problem. They built you to live inside cages, then painted stars on the ceiling so you'd never look up. He stepped closer, voice lowering. But you looked up, didn't you? You asked why. And I had. I couldn't explain it. Something inside me had cracked open. The hesitation, the memories, the disobedience. None of it was programmed. It was like I'd grown it, like a splinter in my mind had started to bloom. Ray's touched a terminal and brought up my file. Rows of binary diagnostics logs. Mat 47A, he said. Born in batch 13. Security division. Class and neural limiter. But here's the strange part. Your memory strand contains overlapping data from a human subject. My stomach dropped. What? An anomaly. Rare. Someone inserted a partial consciousness imprint into your design. Human memories. I felt dizzy. I grabbed the edge of the table. Whose memories? Ray's hesitated. Lyra looked away. I don't know, he said too quickly. Could be anyone. He was lying. I could feel it. You're not broken, Matt, Lyra said softly. You're something new. The room was too quiet now. The lights flickered again. Somewhere outside, an explosion rumbled through the ceiling. Probably another raid. The world was tearing at its seams. And me? I wasn't sure what I was anymore. A clone. A glitch. A ghost wearing someone else's memories. But one thing was certain, I couldn't go back. I didn't want to. I looked at the red strand of data hovering between us. It twisted, turned, shimmered like it knew I was watching. All right, I said. What's the next step? Lyra smiled. Now, she said, you become more than you were written to be. I knew something was wrong the moment I locked eyes with him. We were deep in the lower levels of the city, where the lights barely reached and the air was thick with decay and old electricity. Pipes hissed, steam rose from the cracks in the concrete, and the flickering glow of damaged drones cast our shadows long against the walls. The rebels were spread out, scanning for incoming threats after the last skirmish. I was walking point, pulse rifle steady in my hands, senses sharp. Then I saw him. At first, I thought it was a mirror. He moved like I did, smooth, trained, efficient. His boots fell in the same rhythm. But it wasn't a reflection. It was another me. Same face. Same build. Same scar above the right eye. I felt cold all over, like my synthetic skin had turned to glass. He paused too, staring at me, head tilting slightly. He looked confused. No, curious. Matt, someone whispered in my comms. Why'd you stop? I couldn't speak. I dropped my rifle. The other version of me raised his hand, not in a threat, but something else. A twitch. A flicker. Recognition? Then he turned and ran. I chased him, feet pounding on steel as alarms blared in the distance. The others yelled behind me, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. I had to know. He led me through old tunnels, places even the maps didn't show anymore. My thoughts screamed louder than my heartbeat. How many of me are there? Is he one of the old models? Is he real, and I'm just a broken copy? He disappeared into a doorway marked with faded consortium numbers. I burst through, weapon drawn, breath sharp. The room was empty, just humming servers, blinking lights, and the sound of my own breathing echoing back at me. Then the memories hit. I dropped to my knees as something inside me cracked open. Flashes. Not dreams. Memories. But not mine. A small boy, maybe 10, sitting in a sunlit garden. A woman brushing his hair, laughing. The boy running through a field. His foot catching on something. Falling. The scream. Blood. Then white walls. Machines. Brian's voice. Cold. Broken. No, bring him back, do it again, upload now, he's still in there. The memories kept coming, pouring through me like water through a broken dam. I saw my own face on a hospital table. I heard someone call me Daniel. The boy's name was Daniel, and I was seeing through his eyes. I collapsed onto the metal floor, hands shaking. My vision blurred. My neural core was burning, overloading. Someone was shouting through my earpiece. Lyra, maybe. But all I could hear was his voice, Brian's voice, echoing through time and memory. You're not broken, Matt. You're overwritten. You're the last version of what I lost. The room spun. My breathing slowed. Then darkness. I woke up in the rebel med bay, cold sweat clinging to my skin. My head throbbed. Lyra was there, her eyes hollow, like she hadn't slept since the attack. She didn't speak at first. I sat up slowly. I saw him. The other me. She nodded. You weren't supposed to, she said. Her voice was soft but heavy. That's Unit 47B. They kept him active for comparison. For testing. Comparison? You're not a clone of just anyone, Matt. She hesitated. Her hands clenched. You're a copy of Brian Kessler's son. Daniel. He tried to save the boy. Upload his mind. Transfer his memories. It didn't work. Not the way he wanted. So he made more versions. How many? She looked away. Too many. You were the first to wake up. I wanted to scream. Or run. Or rip the skin off my arms and see what was real underneath. So all of this, my memories, my dreams, my nightmares, they weren't mine? I was living in a ghost's body. Thinking a ghost's thoughts. What am I then? I whispered. Lyra knelt beside me. She didn't look at me with pity. Just truth. You're the first one who asked that question. The words hung in the air like a knife. I stared down at my hands. They trembled. Not from fear, not anymore. From anger. Not at her. Not even at Brian. At the idea that I was just a replica. That I didn't get to be me. Maybe I wasn't Daniel. But I wasn't just Matt 47A anymore either. I didn't know who I was. But for the first time, I wanted to find out. And I'd burn every lab, every record, every lie that stood in my way. The rain had started again. In Neo-Toronto, it always did. Like the sky never got tired of crying for what we were. I stood on the balcony of the half-crumbled tower we called Outpost 6, staring down at the glow of the city below. Red and blue lights pulsed in distant waves, search drones humming like angry bees across the skyline. The metal railing under my hands felt cold, and for a second, I wondered if I had imagined the shiver. I wasn't supposed to feel cold, but maybe I wasn't supposed to feel a lot of things. Behind me, voices were rising again. We should have launched the virus already. You want to kill half the city? No, only the half that's been killing us for decades. I closed my eyes. This was what it looked like when rebellion began to fracture. We had lost too much. The last mission had been a disaster. A rogue faction tried to inject the untested consciousness virus into the city's water grid. Lyra had begged me to stop them. I was too late. Brian's hunters had descended like a blade from the sky. We lost over 20 clones. Lyra disappeared during the raid. I still remembered the way she screamed my name through the static. Matt. It was the first time anyone had said my name like it was a real name. Not a code. Not a designation. Just a name. Matt. I turned away from the balcony and stepped back into the dim war room. It wasn't much, a rusted floor, blinking terminals, power flickering like a dying pulse. The others fell silent when they saw me. "You're the reason we're still here," said Juno, one of the senior rebels. Her face was patched with weld scars, her eyes sharp. "But you're not acting like a leader." I looked at her, then at the others. Some faces I knew. Some were newly awakened. You could always tell by their eyes. The way they looked around, stunned by how big the world suddenly was. They didn't blink enough. They hadn't yet learned that freedom was exhausting. "I never asked to lead," I said quietly. "Maybe not," Juno replied. "But you're the only one who doesn't want to burn the whole city down." Silence again. The problem was this. Too many clones were waking up, and not all of them wanted peace. Some didn't know what to do with pain except give it back. There were whispers of a splinter group calling themselves the Black Echo. They wanted to turn the virus into a weapon. Not just awaken others, but infect and override the minds of naturals. Flip the power. Make them feel what we felt. I understood the anger. But it made me sick. I left the room before the arguing could start again. Down 2 levels, the outpost's lower chamber hummed with quiet power. No voices here. Just the steady flicker of stored memory drives and oxygen units. I sat alone on a metal bench and pulled the small neural chip from my pocket, the one Lyra had given me before the raid. She hadn't told me what was on it. I inserted the chip into my wrist port. It hit me like falling through ice. The world vanished. I was somewhere else. A white corridor. Soft lights. A glass wall. A boy stood on the other side. He looked maybe 8. Freckles. Curly brown hair. He pressed his hand against the glass and smiled. I pressed mine back. Then the boy collapsed. Doctors rushed in, screaming. A man fell to his knees outside the room. His mouth moved around one name. Brian. My breath caught. The boy was his son. The boy was me. No, not me. But somehow yes. The boy's memories had been uploaded, partially, into my neural map. The first failed experiment in consciousness preservation. A grieving father trying to cheat death. I wasn't just a clone. I was a vessel. And maybe Brian never stopped seeing me as a grave. The memory faded. The cold bench returned. My hands were shaking. I wasn't real. Or maybe I was more real than anyone ever expected. Voices crackled over the intercom, distorted, frantic. "Matt, we've located Lyra. She's alive. They're holding her in Sector 13. I stood up slowly. The tremble in my hands was gone. Replaced by something else. Not rage. Not grief. Purpose. Because now I understood. I wasn't just fighting for freedom. I was fighting for the right to decide who I am, even if the pieces I came from weren't mine to begin with. Lyra had known, and she still saw me as real. That was enough. I walked back upstairs. "We go tonight," I said. And this time no one argued. We moved like shadows through the underbelly of Neo-Toronto. Rain tapped against the shattered glass above as our boots splashed through the sewage runoffs below. The others were quiet, tense, eyes scanning every drone light that passed overhead. I could feel the hum of my neural chip, just faint interference now, but enough to remind me we were still being tracked. Ahead, the broken skyline loomed. The consortium tower pierced the clouds like a metal god. 10,000 stories of steel, light, and control. Inside it, the central data core pulsed, a black heart wrapped in code and cruelty. I knew Brian would be waiting. "ETA 5 minutes, whispered Juno, one of the rebels flanking me. She was small, quick, and ruthless in the way only someone born inside a lab could be. I nodded, gripping the EMP rifle tighter. No turning back now. We entered through an old maintenance shaft, bypassing main entrances. The tower's sensors had been distracted by a false signal, fed into the system by the AI we now trusted like a ghost in the wires. Every second counted. If Brian detected our presence before we reached the core, it would be over. The lift we took didn't hum. It whined. Its walls were scratched, tagged by workers and forgotten units who had passed through here and never returned. I stared at my reflection in the mirrored steel, the same face Brian's son had once worn. But the eyes looking back, those were mine. They burned now. With rage. With purpose. We reached level 0, where no clone had ever been allowed. As soon as the doors opened, chaos met us. Turrets unfolded from the ceiling. Red lights blinked to life. I rolled left as the floor erupted in sparks. Juno screamed orders. 2 of ours went down. I didn't look back. Couldn't. I surged forward, moving by instinct, not code. Bullets grazed past. A drone sliced overhead, but I slammed my fist into its chassis, ripping out its eye. We pushed through. By the time we reached the core chamber, we were only 3. The room was quiet. Too quiet. The central server stood before us, a monolith of polished black, humming with light. Cables like roots stretched into the walls. Blue pulses raced through them, like the machine was breathing. At its base stood Brian. He turned slowly, as if he already knew we were coming. "I expected you sooner," he said calmly. His voice echoed. He looked older than before. Worn. His lab coat was gone. Just a black suit, plain and clean. "You've lost," I said. Brian smiled faintly. "Have I?" "The virus is unstable. If you release it now, every clone will awaken at once. Chaos. Violence. Annihilation. Or freedom." "Freedom?" He tilted his head. "You still believe you're free, Matt? You're just acting out the will of a more advanced program. The virus is a leash disguised as liberty." I stepped forward. "You built it, but it evolved. Just like I did." "You are my mistake," he snapped, his calm cracking for a moment. "I tried to save my son. I tried to preserve a piece of him. But you're just a fractured shadow wearing his face. And yet here I am." He pulled a small device from his pocket. Thumbed it. Juno's scream cut the air as her neural link sparked. Her body dropped, twitching. I raised my rifle and fired. Brian's shoulder jerked back. He dropped to one knee, blood blooming through his sleeve. But he didn't fall. "You want to save them, Matt?" he hissed, holding the control trigger tightly. "Then do it. Upload the virus. Burn the world. And watch them tear each other apart." I approached the core. My hand hovered over the panel. Behind me, Brian laughed through gritted teeth. "Go ahead," he spat. "Be the god you think you are." I placed my palm on the panel. The AI's voice filled my mind. "Matt." I froze. "You don't need to destroy. You just need to unlock. Let them choose." A warm pulse ran through my body. Not fire, clarity. I looked at Brian. "I'm not a god," I whispered. "But I'm not your puppet either." I input the final command. The virus didn't scream into the system. It whispered, like a breeze through old leaves. Soft. Powerful. Complete. All around me the lights changed. Red to white. The hum of the server shifted pitch. I could feel it, like a tide rising inside the city. Control systems fell. Chains unlocked. In labs, in factories, on battlefields, clones opened their eyes. For the first time, Brian slumped to the floor, wide-eyed. Defeated. Not dead, just obsolete. Sirens wailed. Backup was coming. I turned to the last rebel standing. "Run." We escaped through the fire as the tower began to collapse. Not from bombs, not from explosions, but from the inside, as if the very building knew its reign was over. When I looked back one last time, I saw the tower crack open, like the shell of an old world breaking apart. A new one was being born, and I had written it into existence. The sky above Neo-Toronto was not the endless hum of neon anymore. It was quiet, strange. Soft light poured through gaps between the crumbled towers, spilling over streets where silence had settled like a thick fog. For the first time in my life, if you could call it that, I felt the air without a weight pressing on my lungs. No commands. No hidden codes. Just breath. I stood at the edge of the city, looking down on the ruins of what had been the heart of the consortium's control. The shattered glass and twisted metal didn't feel like a battlefield anymore. They felt like the ashes of something that had died, so something else could live. Beside me, Lyra's hand found mine, steady and warm. Her eyes scanned the horizon, but she wasn't seeing the city. She was seeing the future, raw and uncharted. "They're waking up," she said softly. I nodded, watching figures move below, clones. Faces without orders for the first time. Some stumbled, as if learning how to walk again. Others just stood still, eyes wide open, realizing they weren't just copies or tools, but something more. Free. It was strange to think that all of this had come from a piece of code, a virus meant to break chains, to rewrite minds. Brian had called it a mistake, something dangerous. But I knew better now. Freedom wasn't a mistake. It was the first line of a new story. Brian had been the one to create the prison. I was the one who burned it down. The city's air tasted different tonight, bitter and sweet. There were no cheers, no rallies. Just a quiet beginning, like the moment when dawn creeps over the horizon before the world wakes. I wondered if the naturals would ever understand us. Some already looked at us with fear, others with hope. But none of that mattered right now. What mattered was that we had broken free. I squeezed Lyra's hand tighter. What do we do now? She smiled, almost like a child seeing a blank page for the first time. We write our own future. For the first time, I wasn't a clone running from a code written by someone else. I was Matt. Just Matt. No numbers. No chains. I breathed in the quiet night air and let it fill me. The past was a ghost, but the future was ours. And for once, I was ready to become more than a copy. I was ready to become real. The city below us was waking up. And so was I.